Hey guys, thank you so much for watching Two Awesome Men. We are going to do something a little different today. We're going to actually be reviewing two movies. We've done it before in the past, but today, so many movies. There's like 3 movies that came out all at once.
We should have just seen all 3 of them.
Yeah, I know.
No, we don't have that time.
Yeah, but one of them was Aladdin, and that Aladdin was actually the one we didn't see today. It was Aladdin, it was Booksmart, and it was Brightburn. And we went to go see Booksmart and Brightburn. We're going to try to make this one a little quick because I am extremely tired right now. So we're going to try to zoom through this one.
Especially since we're reviewing 2 movies. We're going to try to keep it short and simple.
Yeah, so we're going to try to keep this a little short. So the first movie we saw, though, was Booksmart.
Yeah, and it's directed by Olivia Wilde, which is actually her first full-length movie to direct.
Mm-hmm. And it stars Caitlin Dever and Beanie Feldstein. I haven't really looked up anything about Caitlin Dever. I haven't really looked up anything about these 2 actresses. All I know is that Beanie Feldstein was in Lady Bird.
Yeah, which this movie reminded me a lot of Lady Bird, to be honest. I don't think it was as good as Lady Bird, but it definitely had kind of a simple concept. Yeah. And it was about 2 high school girls, which Lady Bird was about a girl in high school, and it could have been really like cliche and just kind of throwaway-ish. But they actually made it pretty unique. Yeah. With the writing.
Yeah. Also, I do want to bring up the story in this movie because the story is actually pretty well written. Yeah. You know, all throughout, you kind of understand it. It's about like these 2 girls who have gone through entire high school. You know, and they thought that they really needed to focus on high school, but they realized that all the people that, like, all the other people, all the cool kids, are still getting in the same college as they are. Yeah. You know, and it's really kind of another kind of cool coming of age movies. Right. And they've been making a lot of those, at least one a year every now. Yeah. You know, and so, I mean, but all of them, but most of them are pretty good. Most of them are pretty good. This one really is no exception to that. One of my favorite things about it is that there's mean people, you know, in this movie, mean teenagers, you know, from their class, but it doesn't make them mean teenagers from their class, you know. And I'm not going to go into too much detail, but it does show them to be something else, you know.
Pretty human.
Yeah, and it shows like an ending, like kind of happy ending for everyone. Yeah. Really, even the people at the beginning that you didn't really like. Yeah. You know, later on you're like, okay, these people aren't that bad. There's just something going on in their lives. Right. You know, that makes them a little on edge. And that's kind of how not everybody, that's kind of how a lot of people are. Some people in high school are a little mean because it's kind of just they're on edge because of some reason. Not always, but, you know, sometimes. This movie also, it was really funny. I do want to say, though, the humor was probably my biggest negative in the whole movie. I didn't really have many issues, and the issues I do have aren't huge, but the humor is the biggest issue. And that is that the beginning starts off, you can tell that there's jokes, but they don't really land that well, like, at all, usually. Yeah. There's a few here and there, maybe like 1 or 2 in the beginning. They do land pretty good, but even, like, other than that, it's like nothing's funny. Nothing's cringy, but nothing's funny.
Yeah, and I kind of got scared because for a while I was just like, oh no, is it just going to be like another one of those movies where they're trying to make jokes throughout the movie, it's not funny. And it actually lasted quite a while in this movie, for me at least. Yeah. I don't know how long it took you.
I'm not really sure, can't really remember when it started getting like really funny. Yeah. I don't think it was really that far into the movie, but it was a little bit further than I was hoping it would be.
Yeah, it definitely took a while for me, and I do have to count off quite a bit for that, especially since it's just a flat out comedy. It's not necessarily as much of a drama as Lady Bird was, which Lady Bird wasn't that much of a drama either, but Lady Bird was more of a drama in this movie. This one was more of a comedy, and since the comedy wasn't that great at the beginning, it does take off a lot. But I will say, once it starts getting funny, then it was pretty consistently funny throughout the rest of the movie, and actually like really funny at certain parts.
Yeah, and then other than there's just one scene that has to do with like a drug, and there's one part of what they go through that takes a little too long, and it was like a weird thing in general, and I didn't mind that. It just lasted a little long, and I think they thought it was funnier than it actually was.
Yeah, it would have been funny if it lasted just a few seconds, but they had it last a few minutes, and it was just like, okay, it's not that funny.
Yeah, and I will say, like, there's a character in this movie. I can't remember his name. I can't remember.
Jared.
Jared.
Yeah.
Yeah. His character.
Kid.
Yeah, the rich kid. Yeah, he was the funniest thing.
Yeah. He was honestly my favorite part of the movie. Yeah. He's barely. I mean, I won't say he's barely in it, but he's not in it that much. But he was definitely my favorite character. Yeah. He's like everything he said was pretty hilarious.
Yeah. I know I've seen the guy before, and I'm pretty sure I can remember what it is later, but I can't remember.
Yeah. A lot of people in this movie seem really familiar. I mean, I know the one girl's from Lady Bird, and then I know the other main girl was on Detroit.
Yeah.
But I mean, like pretty much every character in this movie seemed pretty familiar to me for some reason.
Yeah. Well, not just that, just the kid who played Jared just completely seemed familiar.
Oh, okay.
Well, guys, overall, this movie was actually really good. I will say, I think this movie has a really high score on Rotten Tomatoes, and I definitely understand why, because this movie is actually really good, and I highly recommend it. I'd probably buy it even on Blu-ray. I buy a lot of movies on Blu-ray though. But it's a really good movie, and it's definitely really funny. Just kind of watch it and kind of just sit through those first few minutes. The first few minutes aren't bad. They're just not nearly as funny as they probably hoped they were going to be.
Yeah, I definitely highly recommend this movie too. Like we said in the beginning, you kind of just have to sit through it. It's definitely still has a lot of energy in the beginning of the movie. It does have a pretty good setup for the characters, the two main characters. But overall, it was just pretty funny. It was a pretty fun movie, and I do recommend it.
We are gonna say that Booksmart is 85% awesome. Anyways, guys, the next movie we're going to be talking about now is going to be Brightburn.
And it's directed by David Yurovsky, and it's produced by James Gunn, the director of Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, this movie stars Elizabeth Banks, David Dunham, I think it was. Yeah, and Jackson.
Close enough.
And Jackson A. Dunn.
Yeah.
And this movie is actually a really cool concept. It's pretty much the Superman.
Yeah.
The idea of Superman.
Yeah, his exact origin story and everything.
Yeah, how he lands on a farm and two parents who don't have kids, and they find him and they raise him.
Right.
And he turns out he has superpowers, and the kid actually pretty much has the same superpowers that Superman has. Yeah. But this movie goes over the idea of what would happen if Superman wasn't as good of a person, wasn't a good person.
Right. He turned out to be evil.
Yeah, he turned out to be evil. It's a really cool concept, and this movie actually, I think you've been pretty decently excited about this movie.
Yeah, of the three movies that came out today, I was wanting to see this one the most.
Yeah.
Of the three.
Whenever it came to this one, I was a little bit more excited to see Booksmart, but I was pretty decently excited to see this one too. And this movie isn't bad. It's actually pretty good. I really did enjoy it. This movie has some fantastic kills. Man.
Oh yeah, it's some pretty gruesome. It's definitely rated R. I will warn you, if you're looking to go see this movie and think it's gonna be like some kind of like superhero movie that just like a Superman movie.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's definitely not. It's definitely more horror. It's definitely more rated R.
Yeah.
It's definitely a lot more gory than you're probably expecting. I mean, there is that one scene in the trailer where the girl's eye gets hit by a shot of glass, but it goes pretty into detail in the movie, the actual movie.
Yeah, and you're watching it, and you're kind of just like you kind of like happy because they just did it.
Right? Yeah, they just went for it.
Yeah, they're just like, let's just do this as much as we can.
Just
like,
went all out.
What's the worst thing that could happen in this scenario to this person?
Right.
Yeah, and it goes over that really well. It's really entertaining in that aspect. Whenever it comes to the acting is fantastic in this movie.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
I love the acting. The acting between Elizabeth Banks and was David Dunham, I think his name was.
I think he plays Roy on The Office, and that's the only thing I've seen him in. So it was nice to see that he's actually a pretty good actor.
Yeah, so he did really well. They had this really nice chemistry in between the two that really worked.
Right.
They really felt like an actual married couple in this film that actually had a kid and raised it.
Yeah, and even the kid actually did pretty well. The only thing I've seen him in was he played the young Scott Lang in Avengers Endgame.
Oh yeah.
When he turned into a little kid and an old man. But he actually did pretty good. But I will say his character. Obviously he turns evil because that's the whole point of this movie. And he kind of hears voices in his head, and they don't really explain exactly what those voices mean. And he does even at one point he even tells his parents that he wants to do good. So it doesn't really explain what causes him to turn evil. because it doesn't really seem like it's his choice for the most part. It seems like there's some other being, and it's pretty obvious that it comes from the spaceship that he came from, but they don't really fully explain it. Yeah, that's one of the biggest negatives I have about this movie.
Yeah, it's also kind of like a missed opportunity for something a little more interesting to actually have the guy go through a battle within himself of like being evil or being good.
Kind of like Kylo Ren.
Yeah, like Kylo Ren. Because like you said, he even says like, I want to do good, but you don't ever see him like try to do that.
Yeah,
he always. It seems like as soon as something happens, he goes straight to the first evil thought he could think of.
Right.
And so that's a really big issue.
Yeah, and
this movie.
Yeah, I think that kind of stems up with another negative that I have about this, which is not really like this one's not really like a huge negative, but like it's an hour and a half long movie, and so they kind of go straight into the actual plot pretty fast. You don't really get to see this family like normal for a while because he starts becoming evil like pretty quickly. Yeah. So you don't really get to see him as just a normal kid or normal family.
Yeah, and this movie, it is a movie that I really think could have done with like an extra 30 minutes or so. Like an hour and a half is a pretty short amount of time to have so much stuff really happen. There's a lot of stuff that happens in this movie, which is another not really big negative, but kind of smaller one.
And then there were some scenes that I felt were just kind of cliche-ish. Is that a word? They're kind of cliche. Especially like whenever he had any scenes with his other classmates, like when they were bullying him and stuff like that. They just seemed like really cliche. And just the writing in some of the scenes, not overall, just some of the scenes, just seemed kind of strange and not really natural. And just the editing kind of added to that, just not natural feeling. But it wasn't overall. It was just a few scenes here and there.
Overall, this movie is actually pretty decent to watch. I would highly recommend it. If you really want to go in there for some of the gruesome kills, there's some really good ones in there, if that's what you're going for. If you don't want to see that, then don't see this movie at all. And the movie has surprisingly good acting. Acting I wasn't really expecting to see out of this movie. I wasn't expecting to see bad. I just wasn't expecting to see this good. And actually have some kind of connection to these characters. That's one big positive of this movie. So yeah, overall, I would highly recommend seeing this.
Yeah, Brightburn was definitely a really entertaining movie, especially if you're a fan of horror. I mean, Superman's powers do kind of lend themselves to a good horror movie, which I never really thought of, that in itself is pretty creative. And also another thing that I just heard about was that this movie was made on a $7 million budget.
Oh, yeah.
Which the special effects in this movie aren't like anything like great. But they are pretty good, and even before you know that it was made on a $7 million budget, it definitely did look like it was made pretty well with a pretty big budget. But it was made with a pretty small budget, so I commend them for that. They did that pretty well. Just overall, it was a pretty well-made movie. I do recommend this one too. I don't like it as much as Booksmart, which is surprising because I was wanting to see this movie a lot more than Booksmart, but I ended up liking Booksmart a little bit more. But I do still recommend Brightburn.
We are going to say that Brightburn is 78% awesome. Well, guys, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also, comment and let us know what you thought about these two movies. Or, I mean, you probably haven't, I don't know, maybe you haven't seen both of them. But, if you have seen either of them, let us know what you thought about them, and maybe we can, let us know if you didn't like them or whatever. We can probably comment below and let us know. We can tell you what we thought about it and kind of have a conversation. That's pretty much what I love having even in comments. Right. It's just like a nice little conversation about movies.
Right. And don't forget to follow us on social media. We have a Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all at 2 Awesome Men.
And as always, thank you so much for watching, and you will see us later.